Season Pass, sponsored by City National Bank, starts now.
Good evening. Welcome into Season Pass. I'm your host, Brian Cunningham. The next half hour, a full recap from Week 3 of the high school football season with highlights and scores from all across the Concho Valley. Plus, we're going to check in on Angelo State Athletics, where all fall sports are officially underway, and they had a weekend. Plus, a look around at what in the country is making top sports. We get started in our very own backyard with the Central Bobcats, who entered this week 0-2, looking for their first win. The Bobcats entered the game 0-2, looking to add to that win column on Friday night. First quarter, CHS down 7-0. Squeaky does it himself, the 23-yard quarterback keeper to get them on the board. Ties the game 7-7. Cooper trying a long field goal attempt here, and it's blocked. Jimmy Norton with the huge play for the Bobcats to keep it tied at 7. Central's going to take advantage of this opportunity. Squeaky finds a wide-open Christian Mora, nothing but green grass ahead of him for 6 points. 15-7 Central. Last minute of the half, Ewing takes the handoff for Cooper. He fumbles. The Bobcats recover in Cougar territory. Final score, Central gets their win on the season, 31-27. We now take you to our second biggest Concho Valley team here, the Lakeview Chiefs. Chiefs entered this game 0-2, looking to also turn the tide on their season. The Chiefs kicked off Week 3 hosting the Lamesa Tornadoes. Starting in the first quarter, jumping right out the gate. A quick 21-0 lead is punctuated by this touchdown here. Lamesa did not go down without a fight, though. Quarterback Daniel Ramos finds Celius McCurley, who turns on the speed, breaking away for a touchdown, cutting the deficit to 14. But Lakeview once again responds in the end zone. Daniel Munoz hauling in this beautiful throw for the score. This one becoming a back-and-forth affair. Lamesa finding the end zone again. This time it's D.V. Lugo who punches it across. Lakeview makes a statement at home, emerging victorious by a score of 55-14. Great Creek played host last Friday night to the Bangs Dragons, and we're still looking for their first win of the season. These former district opponents are all too familiar with each other. The Dragons taking 9 of the last 10 meetings, and Great Creek walks away with the win, 38-27. The TLCA Eagles hosted the Ballinger Bearcats Friday night. TLCA enters this game 0-2, and having met Ballinger every year for the past 5 seasons, after 2 huge losses to open their season, TLCA also looks to turn the tide on their season, but would walk away 0-3 to start the year. A pair of Concho Valley teams met in this anticipated matchup. The Brady Bulldogs traveled to Ozona for this matchup that hasn't happened since 2021. Ozona is averaging over 40 points a game through the first 2 weeks, and in a shootout, it's the Bulldogs who walk away with this one, 47-45, 2-1 on the season. We now transition to another big matchup from Friday night. The Wall Hawks hosted Jim Ned, a matchup of former district opponents. Wall entered this game 1-1 on the season. Jim Ned holds 3 of the last 4 wins against the Hawks. Midway through the first quarter, Wall is going to strike first. Quarterback Landon York rolls to his left, throws a dart to Kellen Oliver, who makes the snag 2 feet in. Hawks up 8-0. Same score still in the opening quarter. Lane Stansberry able to drill one through from 28 out. Wall extends the lead to 11-0 after the opening play. Second quarter, the Hawks go back to the air again. York looking for someone down the field, scrambles out of the pocket, finds Reed Robertson, lets him do the rest. He makes a couple Indians miss, finds pay dirt. Hawks 17-0, and towards the end of the half, Jim Ned looking to find points. Quarterback scrambling around, heaves one to the end zone. Instead, they find Evan Bailey with the interception. A tale of 2 halves in this one, though. But Wall scores with under 10 seconds left, gets the 2-point conversion, and wins the game 25-24. Coming up next on Season Pass, we continue our coverage of high school football across the Concho Valley. Class 2A is up next when we return with some notable matchups of Concho Valley teams facing off against one another. Don't go anywhere. This is Season Pass. Let's take you back into the action as 2A continues with a couple more Concho Valley teams facing off. El Dorado traveled to Sonora last Friday night. The Broncos, they've won 11 of the last 12 matchups against the Eagles. The Eagles enter this game 1-1 on the season. The Broncos looking for their first win. Opening drive with a nice run to the outside, breaking some tackles, but the drive would eventually stall here. Still in the first quarter, the Bulldogs are going to hit a screen pass on this drive to Dylan Ford, and Dylan is going to give a lesson of effort on this play. A cutback to the inside, 2 more broken tackles, and dragging another defender behind him before he is stopped on the play. That next play, Aaron Segura Segura is going to go up top and find Camagero, 4-6 in the lead as the first winds down. The Broncos would go up 7 at half and would walk away with the 41-7 victory week 3. The Cristobal Cougars traveled to McCamey Friday night to take on the Badgers. This battle of former district opponents sees both teams entering this game looking for their first win of the season, and the Cristobal Cougars are going to finish just short, falling to 0-3 on the season, 19-15. The well-loved Puncherdome saw a good matchup last Friday night. Mason hosting the Coleman Blue Cats, with the Punchers leading this overall series 7-3-1, splitting the last 2 meetings. The Blue Cats looking for their first win of the season. Mason looking to prevent that, and does. Mason walks away with the big 53-6 win and 2-1 on the season. The Winters Blizzards came to town to take on the Sterling City Eagles, a matchup of former district opponents who split this 2-game series with 1 win apiece. Both teams entered this game 1-1 on the season as well, and it would be the Eagles with the shutout 45-0, improving to 2-1 on their season. Bulldogs 2-0, Johnson City 2-0. One of the battles of the unbeaten teams taking place on Friday night. Straight into the action, shotgun handoff for Tevin Mead. 4-6. Bulldogs go up after the missed PAT the following drive after an Eagles fumble. It's Tevin once again on the handoff. Bulldogs up 13-0 later in the second quarter. If you thought, where's Cooper Ellison been? Just wait a minute as the Bulldogs connect on a huge touchdown here. Yancey, Cooper, full length of the field, 4-6. Bulldogs go up 20-0 in the first half, and they're not done yet. Second quarter winding down, Tevin Mead on another outside handoff and another touchdown for the stud running back, his 3rd of the half, outrunning some Eagles to extend the lead 26-0 at halftime. Bulldogs walk away 3-0 on the year. The Junction Eagles traveled to Longhorn Stadium over and early to face a former district opponent, and their first time meeting since 1997. The Eagles entered this game 2-0 on the season and continue adding to that win column. Grand Junction's going to walk away 3-0 on their year. Coming up on Season Pass, Class 1A is up next, and when we return with some notable matchups of Concho Valley teams facing off against one another. Don't go anywhere. This is Season Pass. Welcome back in. We're now going to transition to 6-man ball, and our first matchup again is another pair of Concho Valley teams, Bront, who played host last Friday night to Very Best. Out at Stevenson Field, Very Best and Bront meeting for their 3rd straight year. Very Best is drawing first blood and never looking back on this one. Junior Bryce Martin takes it to the end zone, 8-0 Falcons. Later on, Bront's quarterback Cole Knight rushing to his left, getting tackled past the 20-yard line. Longhorns were marching out, but a few plays later, this time Knight walks into the end zone. Point after try, no good. So it's 8-6 Very Best, but that would be the Longhorns' lone score tonight. Very Best adds more onto this touchdown here. Once again, it's Bryce Martin having himself a night. Score is now 22-6 in favor of the Falcons. Very Best shuts down Bront for the remainder of this one, cruising to a 52-6 road win, and now 2-0 on the year. Erie County traveled to take on the Midland Holy Cross Crusaders. These two teams met tonight for the first time ever. The Hornets entering 0-2. The Crusaders 2-0. Someone's adding a 1 to that 0 column in some fashion, and Erie County completes the comeback, getting their first win of the year. Robert Lee traveled to Erie tonight to take on the Bulldogs in a series that the Steers once had control over at 5-2-1, but have not won the last 3. Both teams enter this game 1-1 on the season, and the Steers fall to the Bulldogs 44-38 and 1-2 on the season. It wasn't a plane, it was not a bird, it was a flying Wildcat that kicked off this game. Water Valley played host this past week to the Panther Creek Panthers, a matchup that hasn't happened since '07. Straight into the action, Water Valley gets on the board first. Outside handoff, Boston Weiss, who does the rest, 8-0 after the 2-point. Wildcats a few drives later with a handoff setting up the next would-be score, and the next play, Brylan Naylor punches it in to go up 2 scores early. A few drives later, the Panthers' running game is stuffed, and the defense for the Wildcats comes alive. Gunnar Brooks is going to jump this next play, take it back for 6. Wildcats go up 22-0 before half and would close out this game with the victory, moving to 2-1 on the season. The Eden Bulldogs played host to the Lomita Hornets, who take control of this series overall at 14-8, winning the last 2. Lomita also enters this game 1-0 on the year. Eden enters at 1-1, and the Bulldogs are going to fall to 1-2 on the season, losing 42-12. Menard traveled to Mullen for a battle of the dogs. This matchup sees these 2 teams face off for their first time in school history. Menard 0-0-1, looking for that first win of the season. Mullen 1-1, but the lead would prove too much as Menard gets its first win of the season, 52-7. The Blackwell Hornets played host Friday night to the Roby Lions, a first-time meeting since 1932. Yes, 1932. Roby enters this week 1-1 on the season. Blackwell 0-2, still looking for that first win, and Blackwell is handed the tough loss, 34-32, falling to 0-3 on the season. This game right here between the Goostine Tigers and Paint Rock Indians was canceled to a threat originating from a neighborhood county. Coming up next on Season Pass, the Rams and Bells had a perfect weekend. We have that coverage when Season Pass returns. Welcome back in. I'm Brian Cunningham. The Rams kicked off their home opener Saturday night with Ram Jam hosting Eastern New Mexico for the Blue Out. The Rams entered this game 0-2 on the season and looked to turn the tide last night at home. The Rams are going to get on board first here with an outside handoff to Jaden Jones, 4-6. This would put the Rams up 7-0 to start the game. A few drives later, the Rams are moving down the field. Braden Fuller is going to drop back and find a crossing Kel Williams for the huge first down gain, setting up the eventual touchdown. And that's a little foreshadowing there as Braden hands off to Braden Wilcox, who's going to power his way into the end zone. Rams go up 17-10 at this point. Flash forward midway through the third. Shotgun snap for Braden Fuller. Scans the field, finds Hunter Wallace for another Rams score. 26-13 now. Now, the Rams a few drives later would fumble at the 1-yard line to go ahead even more, but they would maintain the lead. Rams win this one 26-20, moving 1-2 on the year. Transitioning now to the court, the Bells traveled to Colorado for the Maverick Fall Classic and walk away a perfect 5-0 on the weekend after winning their 5th game, 3-1 against the host Mavericks. The dominance of Sidney Thornton, Maddie Parrish, and Evelyn Torres was on full display this past weekend. The Bells also beat their first-ranked opponent in the regular season since November 5th of 2021. The Bells end the weekend at 8-1 on the season, the best record in the LSC. Staying with ASU, but now transitioning back to the field, the Bells traveled to Oklahoma to take on the East Central Tigers, and the ladies did not disappoint, keeping up with the trend of a winning weekend for ASU. The Bells won their first matchup 1-0 after a penalty field goal kick by Caitlin Heiss in the 85th minute. The Bells are now 2-1 on the season with their next home game home at September 19th. With Angelo State Athletics wrapped up for tonight, let's take a look at what's making news in the sports world across the country. We start with our very own Mickey Spagnola and his Cowboys post-game wrap-up.
The Dallas Cowboys on Sunday decided to celebrate First Responders Appreciation Day. Well, not even the first responders could resuscitate the Cowboys here at AT&T Stadium. Saints 44, Cowboys 19. And believe me, it wasn't even that close. We thought the Cowboys' defense had improved. We thought the Cowboys' defense against the run had improved. Well, get this. The Saints scored touchdowns on their first 6 possessions. The Cowboys didn't get a stop until there was 12 minutes left in the 4th quarter. And as for that defense, and by the way, the offense wasn't much better. The Saints totaled 435 yards total offense. They ran for 193. Alvin Kamara ran for 115, and Derek Carr only needed 11 completions to throw for 243 yards. So all this talk last week about, well, when the Saints beat Carolina 47-10. Everybody was saying, well, that's the Panthers. Well, after this one, I think everybody's going to say, well, that's the Cowboys. They got a lot of work to do and a lot of things to clean up. For the Silver Star Nation, I'm Mickey Spagnola here at AT&T Stadium.
And let's continue looking at sporting news across the country. Moving to the Diamond now, the Oakland A's future may be at risk. Ashley Sharp has that story.
Is it trouble in paradise at Sutter Health Park or the rumor mill spinning out of control? It depends on who you ask. On a KFBK radio interview that hit the airwaves Thursday morning, prolific sports agent with Sacramento ties Scott Boras said this.
There's a new party that owns the Coliseum that is now ready and willing to negotiate with the A's that wasn't before.
Boras is referring to the African American Sports and Entertainment Group, which by the end of the month will be the sole owner of the Oakland Coliseum. I asked Oakland A's longtime beat reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle, Susan Slusser, could they keep the team in Oakland?
A new owner, especially if they're interested in doing things like saving jobs and providing things like parking and concessions, revenue and taxes for the city and for themselves, I think that they would be very open to that.
At issue for players is the fact that to accommodate both teams, the River Cats and the A's would have to play on a new artificial turf field at Sutter Health Park.
That hot sun, it's not a dome stadium. My God, it gets 120, 130 degrees. We have no major league fields that are AstroTurf that are outdoors. They're all indoor.
I guarantee that there are going to be nonstop complaints from agents and players, particularly visiting players, in the next few years if they're in Sacramento.
CBS 13 Sports' Jake Gaydon interviewed A's players days after the move was first announced.
Well, we trust our PA to make sure that the right adjustments and amenities are met to make sure it's a major league stadium by the time we get there.
A downer for baseball. I say it was below average AAA.
That construction has already started at Sutter Health Park. CBS 13 wasn't able to reach the River Cats and Sacramento Kings owner Vivek Ranadive for comment, but it's a safe bet that a strikeout on moving the A's here would be quite the upset for the ownership already making those upgrades. Here's the official response Thursday from Major League Baseball, telling CBS 13, quote, "It is a certainty that the A's will play their 2025 season in Sacramento as planned. MLB is continuing to work productively with the MLBPA on the details of the transition."
Things are certainly subject to change.
Slusser, in decades of covering Major League Baseball, says she's not yet convinced.
I don't think anybody really knows how this is going to work in Sacramento, and everyone is aware there will be an awful lot of bumps. And we'll see how many bumps Major League Baseball is willing to put up with.
Coming up next, a look ahead at the bow season with the population of deer increasing. We have that story and more when we return with Season Pass. Welcome back in. Before we get to some Week 3 headlines, let's continue with what's making news in sports around the country. We take you to Minnesota before the upcoming bow season. John Lauritsen has the story.
It's fun. I mean, we live for it. We're busy all year, but the last 3 months is our busy time. 126.71.
Archery Country in Rogers may be seeing an increase in customers this fall, in part because there's been an increase in the deer population, especially in the central and southern parts of the state.
With more deer, there's more interest. People are seeing them. So I think it's going to be a win-win.
The DNR says deer numbers are up for a couple reasons. An extremely mild winter gave them easy access to acorns, one of their favorite foods. And a wet spring allowed some of their favorite plants to green up early on.
I was just checking the drawing.
Archery Country says they're also benefiting from legislation passed last year that allows for anyone to use a crossbow while deer hunting. When the law went into effect, license sales went up 6%, with more women and kids buying crossbows and getting involved in the sport.
This is going to be really an exciting season because it'll be my first time crossbow hunting.
Scott Brydell is taking advantage of the new law. He spent the morning sighting in his latest purchase. Brydell says he isn't planning to hunt during Saturday's opener, but he is looking forward to a busy fall. His trail cameras are picking up plenty of action around his deer stands.
I'm seeing a lot of deer, and I'm looking forward to it. Especially if the weather gets colder, leaves start falling.
In Rogers, John Lordson, WCCO News.
Let's now take a look at some of this past week's headlines from Week 3 of the high school football season. Central and Lakeview get their first wins of the season. Wall wins again, moving to 2-1 on the year under Craig Slaughter. And the Miles Bulldogs and the Junction Eagles are both going to move to 3-0 on the season, staying undefeated. And the Rams and Bells, like we said earlier, they swept the entire weekend, a perfect 7-0 through all the sports. And again, we're going to take a look at our high school football player of the week from Week 3 of the high school season. Here in the Concho Valley, we want to give our nod to Sutton Solario over in Mason. 10 carries, 141 yards, and 4 touchdowns this past Friday night. Kind of reminds you of Alvin Kamara earlier today. And what a game for Sutton Solario to help his team beat Coleman. Man, we had a great season pass. Like we said, Mark Smith gets the first win for the Bobcats. Lakeview obviously gets their first win of the season. The Bells and the Rams, they took care of business everywhere they had to, up in Colorado, over in Oklahoma, here at home. And that right there is going to wrap up this week's season pass for Week 3. You can check out all of our content over at the Concho Valley's homepage. You can also follow us on Twitter at KLST Sports, and make sure you use the hashtag Season Pass to stay in the conversation. Don't forget about the Dr. Pepper trivia question. We will be announcing that winner, and we will be sending that out tomorrow. As always, it is never goodbye. It is just until next week. Thanks for hanging out. I'm Brian Cunningham, and as always, good night from the Concho Valley and Season Pass.
Thank you for watching Season Pass, sponsored by City National Bank. For more in-depth stories, scores, and highlights, head to Concho Valley Homepage. For more on today's stories, visit ConchoValleyHomepage.com. Closed captioning for the hearing impaired is sponsored by the Law Office of Rick DeHoyas.